Dawn bled silver over the shoulders of the giant's lance, and she watched it from the white balconies of the Eyrie. Below, the ghost-torrent called Alyssa's Tears flung itself into mist long before it ever touched the Vale, a waterfall named for a woman who, legend said, had seen husband, brothers and children butchered and never wept. 6,000 years, and still no drop had reached the valley floor. She wondered, quietly, grimly, how large a cataract her own grief would carve when her time came. Sir Roderick's voice carried like leather over stone. News from the west, Jaime Lannister raising banners at Casterly Rock, Edmure commanding Lords Vance and Piper to hold the pass beneath the Golden Tooth, Edmure vowing no foot of Tully land would go unblooded by lions. She heard all of it, and felt the ache beneath the words. There was no mention of her father, Hoster Tully, too ill then to hold the lines himself. She thought she should have been woken at once. Lysa had let her sleep. Sleep felt like theft. She told the old knight she was done here. Firmly, they would go home. Determined. North. They would take the long stone ladders down the lance, the baskets and winches to Skye, and from there the serpentine high road to Gulltown, and a ship, any ship, bound for Winterfell. At ship, Sir Roderick paled, and she almost smiled. Even the Eyrie's pure air could not cleanse the taste of Mumma's farce from this day. Tyrion Lannister's confession, the crowd's jeering hunger for spectacle, none of it boded well. As servants tied her laces, she thought of the girl her sister had been at Riverrun, shy, eager to please, soft as river grass. That girl was gone. Lysa Arryn had grown into silk and steel and sudden whims, a woman who preferred a stage to a council table, a public confession to prudent questions in private. The message had come. Tyrion wished to speak, and Lysa demanded an audience hall full of eyes. That choice told its own tale. At Lysa's doors, the Blackfish came through like a storm breaking. Brynden Tully's jaw worked as he told her. He had asked for 1,000 men to ride to Riverrun. Her sister had refused. Exhaled sharply. So he had laid down the title of Knight of the Gate. The high road is cruel to solitary riders, she thought, and said so. Come north with us, uncle. From Winterfell, she promised, his 1,000 would be found. He grunted something like agreement and was gone, all hard angles and wounded pride. Lysa's apartments opened over the Eyrie's godswood. No heart tree would take root in this stony Eyrie, so the Vale had planted grass and blue flowers and scattered statues instead. In the centre stood weeping Alyssa Arryn in white marble, her stone tears forever failing to touch the ground. Here, among thin dark trees and uneven moss-slick stones, with 7 white towers leaning in like watchful sisters, the duel would be fought. Lysa had made herself a picture, elegant on her terrace, suitors orbiting like little moons, while little Lord Robert squealed on his raised chair at a puppeteer's antics. Catelyn spoke plainly. Nothing to gain by killing Tyrion, everything to lose if his champion prevailed. A sellsword is not a knight, Lysa sniffs, and her suitors nodded, especially sharp-tongued Lyn Corbray, eager for a head in a sack to send west. But Catelyn had seen Bronn on the high road, and fear without armour was faster than pride in plate. Robert wanted to see the little man fly. That, in Lysa's mind, settled it. Roderick's whiskers prickled with a question. Did she truly think Tyrion did it? She believed the Lannisters had murdered Jon Arryn. Poison fit certain hands too well. Which hands, Cersei's, Tyrion's, or Jaime's sword-fond fingers, she would not name. She only knew this. A public killing invited a private war. A child's delighted shrieks should her flinch. Robert was too indulged. Love had made him wild-boned and hollow-strong. He would never harden into rule unless he were taken from Lysa and made to learn the weight of quiet. Maester Coleman, hovering with apologetic eyes and wine-wet breath, let slip a secret. Jon Arryn had planned to foster the boy away, Dragonstone, under Lord Stannis. She corrected him, Casterly Rock, but the maester shook his head, insistent, before the moment blew away on the wind. They brought Tyrion forward, wrists free but future-bound. Robert asked whether they might make the dwarf fly, and the hall giggled like ice in a cup. Then the champions emerged from opposite arcs of the garden. Ser Vardis Egen was steel from head to heel, plate over mail, lobstered skirts, a solid gorget, falcon wing crests sprouted from his helm, and his pointed visor offered only a narrow slit on the world. His arm bore a heavy triangular shield. In his hand, Lysa placed Jon Arryn's ceremonial silver falcon sword, a lord's showpiece, not a soldier's friend. Across from him, Bronn looked almost naked by comparison. Half helm, mail coif, ringed leather, nothing that would tire him faster than fear. He was taller than the captain by half a hand, a good 15 years younger, with reach and wind to spare. The Septon invoked the gods and fled the first clatter of steel. On Robert's peeping command, the dance began. Ser Vardis advanced with a veteran's patience, shield tight, sword testing. Bronn gave ground as if it cost him nothing. He glided from stone to stone, always out of line, letting weight and age and borrowed blade do his work for him, while the courtiers, hissing craven from the terraces. Roderick, who knew how armor bit into breath, murmured the only truth the crowd refused to hear. The sellsword was making the knight spend himself. Catelyn's thoughts slipped, unbidden, to Riverrun's lower bailey and another duel, years and lives ago. Brandon Stark facing a boy with a woman's favour in his pocket and a dream in his eyes. Peter Baelish had worn only helm and breastplate and mail. Brandon, quick, cruelly sure, had shrugged off his own greater armour to make a lesson of it. She had begged Brandon to spare the boy, and the wolf had relented. One hard stroke had opened Peter from ribs to hope, and he had bled and lived and learned different weapons. She knew that now. The ring of the present snapped back with the ring of steel. Ser Vardis slipped, just a stumble, but his visor's beak narrowed the world to a sliver, and in that blink, Bronn was already elsewhere. The sellsword's sword bit at the elbow joint, enamelled rondel or no, metal crunching, and the captain's parries drooped, lower, slower, heavier. Lysa's voice, high and brittle, called for an end as if it were being denied her on purpose. Ser Vardis lunged to please his lady. Bronn danced away, levered shoulder to stone, and sent a marble stranger toppling. Alyssa's white cousin crashed down, and the knight of the Eyrie died, pinned beneath the Eyrie's own grace. The garden went very quiet. "Is it over?" the boy asked, small on his high chair. It was. He wanted the little man to fly anyway. Tyrion's smile was a knife with the point turned inward. House Arryn's words were a trap of their own, as high as honour. To speak them was to admit he walked free, and so Lysa did, through a mouth that hated it. Supplies were ordered. Escorts to the bloody gate were promised. Beyond that gate, only the high road, with its narrow ledges, its arrow-slit winds, its painted dogs and silent watchers in the stones. An absolution that smelled like a sentence. Tyrion bowed as if she had given him a keepsake, and Bronn's long stride fell in beside him, already measuring miles. They said they knew the way. Of course they did. Everyone does, until the mountains take their due. She stood a while longer with the morning on her face and the mist on her lips, listening to a waterfall that never fell, and decided that Winterfell was the only honest ground left to her, cold, true, and far. The Vale could keep its sky and its stage. She would keep her promises and count the cost later.